Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing Ben Cockell. Ben, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me, sir.
Dude, I am so stoked to have you here today, man. But before we talk about why you're here, Ben, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
You are an actor best known for your portrayal of Harold Biddle in the Disney Plus series Goosebumps,
Yeah.
Justice for Harold.
Thank
You
you.
also
Thank you.
appeared in two seasons of Disney Plus's The Mysterious Benedict Society and the CW Superman and Lois. So for a lot of us, you've encapsulated a lot of our childhood, being on Disney, being in Goosebumps, being in Superman and Lois. What was it like to get the call that you were going to be a part of Goosebumps 2023?
Oh, that was an amazing morning. It was actually, this is kind of an insane coincidence, but I got the call the morning of Halloween 2022.
Yes.
I'm not even kidding. That's the way it went down. I got the sort of preliminary email that there was like a mystery project that I was in contention for. I was cast very last minute. It happened really fast. So a couple nights before that, I was at a Halloween party dressed as a vampire, and they were like, "Can you send us some pictures of all sides of your face? Because there's this thing that might be that you might get to be a part of." And I was like, "Yes, absolutely," but I'm currently dressed as a vampire, so. Anyways, I sent some like old photos, and then in the morning I woke up at like 6 a.m. and sent like proper photos of me not as a vampire. And then yeah, a few days later, I kind of sleuthed and figured out that it would be Goosebumps because like from that casting director, there was only a couple projects that it could have been. So kind of by trial and elimination, I kind of figured out that it might be Goosebumps, and then yeah, I actually got the official call. It woke me up. The call actually woke me up on the morning of October 31st, and I was over the moon, and I didn't know how big of a part it was going to be yet. So that was another celebration. Once I hopped on a Zoom call with the creators and the producers and everything, and they kind of filled me in on the arc of the season. That was another celebration when I realized that, oh, this was going to be. I thought it was maybe an antagonist. I didn't realize it was going to be kind of the antagonist for that season. And
Yeah.
and so I was like, holy, and then also getting the script and realizing that I opened the show. There was quite a few pinch yourself moments in a very condensed period of time. And when they told me that there was going to be an episode I'd get to lead, I was like, this is very exciting, and it's certainly not something that I was anticipating in any way, but I was delighted.
Well, I'm glad you did, man, because you killed it. I've
Thanks,
told this
man.
story
Thank you.
before. Our kids loved it. Ashley and I loved it. Um, it came out weekly. It wasn't like the one that just got released where they dropped it all at once. So we would
Yeah.
wait, and every week we were watching it the minute it came out, man. Like it was
Um,
meant that much to us. So it was really cool to be able to be a part and watch you grow and see what your character went through, whether it be from the 90s or the now. That's what I love
yeah.
about your character is the what I'm trying for people that haven't seen it, I'm trying to not be too spoilery,
Oh
but
yeah.
he is that guy in the show. And if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Like I said, Ashley and I genuinely loved it. Our kids genuinely loved it. It's fun for all ages. It still has the horror elements. The football field scene alone is terrifying. And seeing you in that referee uniform, man, like
Yeah.
that was dope, dude. Like, what was it like
That was
filming a
fun.
scene like that?
That was crazy. I mean, it was really funny to be in a different outfit like that because for those who don't know, I'm a ghost in the show. That's not a
Yeah,
spoiler. That's like the
no.
opening sequence. I'm haunting the main characters throughout the show, and then it sort of goes back and forth in flashbacks. But for most of the time, I'm in the same kind of like red flannel with a gray hood because that's the clothes I died in. So getting to switch it up and like wear a referee uniform was really fun. And then, I was wearing it in the ghost outfit, and then I also wore that same outfit with the full burn makeup, the full
Mhm.
burn prosthetics on. So that was really cool. I actually wasn't at the football field. They digitally comped me into that scene. So it was like, I heard all about what it was like shooting that scene, and then I was just in like on a giant green screen around people. And that's kind of how my piece of that was shot together. So it was very technical, and there wasn't, I wasn't shooting for an incredibly long time for that sequence because it was like these little snippets of me. but they did
Yeah,
actually have a real ring of fire that they lit up around me on that green screen. And so that bit where I kind of turned my head in the full burn makeup towards Rachel Harris, I did have like real flames around me. So that was really cool. I was
that's
very excited by that. It was very hard to not blink. Um, because ghosts don't blink, especially when you're
right.
doing a stare off with an old foe. And when you got a lot of contact lenses in and you got a lot of smoke around you, your eyes start to water a little bit. So that was the only technical
Right.
challenge. Otherwise, it was really fun. It was a fun
Yeah,
sequence.
the season would have ended pretty quick if she beat you in the stare off. You
It's
know.
true, exactly. It's like, oh, that's not a ghost. He blinked. That's,
Yeah, we got
yeah.
nothing to worry about. Go ahead, end
He's a
zone.
phony. Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the start because you graduated from VFS screenwriting program. You host your own film podcast, Cinema
Yeah.
Submarine, which we do have the links for down in the description, guys. So
Oh,
make sure
thank
you
you,
are
man.
checking that out as well. And like I said, we talked about Goosebumps, the TV show, but your feature film debut, This Too Shall Pass, just played
Hmm.
at Tall and Black Nights Film Festival, will be
Hmm.
released later this year, as well as The Night of the Reaper, a Shudder release
Yeah.
by horror indie veteran and good friend of the channel, Brandon Christensen.
Hell yeah.
Um, we love Brandon around here. Huge fan of everything he's done.
Yeah.
Z is such a fantastic movie. So, obviously, spoiler free. What can you tell us a little bit about This Too Shall Pass and The Night of the Reaper?
Oh yeah, I'm really excited for those. They're both coming out this year. I'm going to, if you have any listeners that are in Victoria, British Columbia by any chance, there's a screening of This Too Shall Pass on February 13th that I'm going to be at. So there's going to be a little Q&A and stuff, and some of the cast are going to be there. So I'm really excited for that movie to come out. That's by Rob Grant. I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Harpoon? He's done a lot of horror stuff. If you look into him, he's got some good horror stuff on Shudder. Um, and but this is not a horror film. This is like an 80s indie coming of age movie set in the
Yeah.
yeah, set in the 80s, and it's a little breakfast clubby, and there's kind of like five of us guys who are living in Syracuse, New York, and we go on a road trip together. We basically all run away from home to Ottawa, Canada, because sort of the main character of the film, who's played by Maxwell Jenkins, he uh he decides to basically follow this girl up there that is not interested in him at the end of the day, and then we're stuck over the border and hijinks ensues. So it's very fun, kind of breakfast clubby type of film. I mean, this is a horror podcast, so you guys would probably know one of the leads in it, Jeremy Ray Taylor, who's from the It films.
It.
Ben, he plays Ben in the It films, and he's also in the other Goosebumps movie. So we had that in common. I'd already done Goosebumps when we were making that film, so we kind of had that in common. And then Maxwell is the lead of the show Lost in Space, and so it's a really great cast, and it's like a fun 80s vibe. And then yeah, Night of the Reaper, I just finished. Yeah, we did that all of October, so I that is
Wow.
a recent one. I don't know how much I can say about that, but it's also set in the 80s, and it's a slasher, and I grew a mustache for it. It's
Yes.
a very different type of part for me. Well, the mustache is on my Instagram, so that's not a spoiler. But yeah, I grew a mustache for it, and I got to be in the 80s again, and it was like kind of classic slasher vibes, and that's going to be a
Yeah.
Shudder release. So that'll
I
that'll
can't imagine somebody's going to sit down to watch this on Shutter and be like, "Wait a minute, he does have a mustache. Turn it off. They spoiled it."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think
Uh,
so. It's like that's a spoiler, big spoiler. It was very fun
right.
though. My mom and my girlfriend hated that mustache, but I had a lot of fun with it. It was a cool excuse for me to, try a facial hair situation because I
Right.
think normally, even just like my agent would not be too thrilled about that. I couldn't, I usually audition for like high schoolers and stuff. So it was
Right.
it was cool to get to try that out. And Brandon's awesome. He's just a great. You said he was a friend of the podcast. Has he come on at some point?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
we've
that's
had him on.
awesome.
We love Z. We love Stillborn. We're a big fan of
Yeah.
the work he does. Very much looking forward to A Night of the Reaper.
Uh,
Even you and Brandon working together, that to me is like that's like sold and sold. You know what I mean? Like
Thank
I'm
you,
I'm
man.
already seated for it, man. Like,
Well, I
and I just
think around this Halloween you're gonna get to see it. So
that's awesome, man. We'd love to bring you back closer to the release of the film to promote it,
I'd
man.
love
That
that
would mean a
too.
lot. Maybe
I'd
we can get
love
you and
that
Brandon
too.
on together. That'd be great.
Hey, he's already done it. I think that's well within the realm of possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, man, and I did say that we have the podcast down in the link for Ben. But we also have all of his social media links because, like I said, he's done what he's done. He has all these amazing things coming out this year. That's just the start, guys. This is going to keep going, and you're going to want to keep up to date on everything he's working on. So make sure you're clicking the links in the description, following him on social media, and subscribing to the podcast as well. So, man, in order for you to be a part of movies like The Night of the Reaper and amazing influential horror shows like Goosebumps, horror had to start for you somewhere, Ben. So now I
Yeah.
would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And boy, this is a doozy, and it's going to make you guys see what I talk about all the time. But Ben, your first horror movie was.
Insidious.
Now, I always talk about how our first horror movie, in a roundabout way, affects us. And to me, it's funny that Ben's first horror movie is Insidious, about a child getting possessed.
It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
And then he plays Goosebumps, where he's a child that was possessed in a way and also possesses someone else. Like that full circle thing for me is absolutely brilliant. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen Insidious, Ben?
It would have been pretty close to when it first came out. So the film came out in 2010, I believe. So I would have been 9 years old. And it was kind of a sleepover classic. I think for like most people around my age, it was. And there'd been other films that scared me before. Like I mentioned briefly to you in an email, Coraline was the first
Hmm.
film that I ever saw that like kept me up at night, but not like a traditional horror film. This was the first time I saw a modern traditional horror film, and it really profoundly affected me. I saw it at a sleepover at my friend's place. That sleepover could not have taken place at my place. My mom would not have approved of watching Insidious. Um,
She's
but
watching right now, like, I knew it.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. No, I told her that I was gonna do a podcast with this concept, and she was like, I don't remember you watching Insidious that young. I was like, yeah, there's a reason why. I didn't I
Yes.
didn't exactly mention it. I was a really good kid about watching horror films for a long time because she said, that I wasn't really allowed. And I remember one night, when I was still not allowed to see them, my friends were putting on Freddy versus Jason, and I was like, I can't watch it, guys. And I was like, being a good kid, I went and I slept in the bathtub while they were watching it, which is horrible. Like that is,
Which
I was really loyal, and then eventually you just can't keep doing that. So I caved and I started watching them, and I was very glad that I did. But this movie specifically, I've got the DVD I had as a kid here of Insidious, but yeah, it profoundly affected me. Um, some scenes in particular, which we'll get to, but yeah, I think it was the first time I experienced anything uncanny. And I
Yeah.
love things that are uncanny. I love rest in peace, the great David Lynch. But my taste for stuff that kind of lives in the uncanny valley or that taps into your subconscious in a weird way. I think this movie was my first time ever seeing that. A lot of especially the stuff in the further near the end of the movie, that really taps into sort of weird meditation, subconscious horror that is still very much my taste. And this was a first
Mhm.
exposure. So yeah, it's interesting.
I love how you might have subliminally freaked all your friends out at that party because in Freddy vs. Jason, you have the scene where the brother's in the bathtub and he's all messed up. So they
I've
were
still
probably out
never
there
seen
watching the
it.
movie like they're out there watching the movie like, oh my God, Ben's in the bathtub.
Yeah,
What if
yeah,
this is happening? But um oh, that just made me laugh when you said
yeah.
that. That's brilliant. So we know that you watched Insidious very, very young, watching it
Hmm.
at a sleepover and
Yeah.
doing what all of us did when we were that age, watching horror movies when we weren't supposed to, and getting that feeling of anxiety and dread. And you kind of hinted at it a little bit, but this movie to this day has some of the most effective scenery in all of horror. It's still to this day one of the scariest horror movies ever made. Do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
Yes, I do. I do. The scene that affected me the most on first watch, there are quite a few of them, but the one I wanted to highlight immediately is the first time a jump scare actually like rattled me so much. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna come back from that. It's the scene where Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne are sitting with, do you know the name of the actor who plays Patrick Wilson's mom? It's slipping from my my brain, but
Off the top of my
she's
head, I
I know
don't.
she's been in other horror movies. I've seen her before, but she's recounting sort of the tale of Patrick Wilson's past as a kid a little bit. And while she does so, and we're kind of in these flashbacks and everything, all of a sudden it cuts back to the sort of core scene that we're intercutting with. And when we're back there, all of a sudden there's this shot of Patrick Wilson and the lipstick face demon appears right behind him, just kind of breathing in his ear, half of his face obscured. And that jump scare absolutely ruined me.
Right. It was
It
Barbara
was
Hershey, by the way.
Barbara Hershey. Okay, yeah. So she's
Yep.
she's giving this sort of monologue that's intercut with all of these sort of flashback sequences, and then yeah, that jump scare hits, and I was so rattled by it. I kind of had the belief that during the day in horror movies, our characters are safe. That at nighttime, yeah, you better get anxious again because the jump scares are coming. But during the day, it's sort of a nice reprieve for the audience to finally have a breath and kind of prepare for the next night that's coming. This is like a time where characters do research of what this evil is, but the evil can't affect them, and that just popped that bubble. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So we're saying they're safe. They're never safe. And I
See,
remember like the Babadook gave me that similar feeling when that
yeah.
movie came out. How there's jump scares during the day. She can't escape it. And that idea of being trapped during the day and the night really messed me up.
Well, what I love about this, I'm going to use a term that's coined by the amazing Tom Savini. They use a Houdini jump scare here. And when I say that, when Barbara Hershey's telling that story, you think that's the scary moment because you see the demon and you see it pointing over at Dalton saying, I want Dalton, and you have that moment. So you're like, oh, that's the scary part. The fear is gone. And then you get the jump scare, so they, subvert your expectations by showing you a scary moment. You think, okay, the music kind of lets up, the tension's gone. Boom, here it is. It's right in your face again. And to this day, one of the all-time best jump scares in the history of cinema. And then, Barbara Hershey's reaction, her screaming after she sees it. And it's such an amazing moment in an amazing movie. And people forget this movie's PG-13. Like, this is not an R-rated movie. They didn't use a bunch of blood and guts. And this is just a movie like liken this to The Ring. They didn't
Yeah.
have to have a bunch of blood and swearing and stuff to push it over that R rating. They scared you by being scary, by rocking you to your core. So I can't argue with you on that because though that whole moment is just terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's truly and it wasn't the scariest point in the movie for me until it was, which is
Right.
so cool too, and rewatching it, there was on this rewatch that I just did, there were other scenes that scared me more because I anticipate it now. But if you don't know that's coming, it's like the worst thing in the world. But there were some other scenes that I was watching and I was like, oh my God, like there's something so uncanny and strange about that sequence in the further at the end when there's that family all sitting on a couch and there's the woman with the shotgun who he goes to the other room and then he hears the shotgun blast. And then when he comes back, she has this horrifying smile on her face and all the people on the couch are dead. And there's something so uncanny and disturbing about that. It's not a jump scare. It's just truly unsettling. And yeah, that I don't know. My girlfriend was terrified watching this movie with me again. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a cakewalk when I turned off the lights and I put this on because, it scared me so much as a kid. I hadn't seen it in a while and I was terrified. It
Yeah,
really,
dude.
really held up. I was like, I can't believe I saw this that young. Like this is a pretty intense one to start with. Some of the imagery in this is just haunting.
Dude, for me, the scene that always got me is when he's walking through the house with that toy
Oh,
and he's flipping through the colors, and then you see those girls and they have that quick turn of their head and
yeah.
smile. No, dude, I was out.
Yeah,
Like
fair
that to
enough.
me, I was like, holy shit, like that, because that just comes out of no, and he's just like, call Elise, get her over here
Yeah,
right now. Like that whole moment, you're like, all right, let's go.
it's
So
on.
while kills are not too prominent in this movie, as horror fans, we do gravitate towards kills. I can only really think of one major kill in this movie, but um this is a movie that doesn't need kills in order to stay afloat in the horror genre. And with it being part of a 5 film franchise now, I have to ask, which is your favorite film in the Insidious franchise?
Probably this one. I think
Okay.
the first one would probably rank pretty highly for me. I haven't seen the most recent one, the Patrick Wilson directed one. I haven't seen that film yet, so I can't speak to that. And I don't know whether I ever saw chapter 3. I know I've seen 1 and 2, and I know that I've seen The Last Key. Um, and 1 and 2 would definitely be my favorites. I think number 2 is also terrifying. And I remember really enjoying that as a kid. But I would say I just look up to this movie the most as it's the original. It's made for like $1.5 million and made over
Yeah.
100. That's ridiculous. It's so contained. It's so terrifying. It's like a really simple idea, but they created all this lore around it. Yeah, I just think it's a special movie, and I believe the family. I think that's
Yeah.
a part that I think might go underappreciated about why this movie works so well is that I really buy them as a couple, as a married couple, and I really buy them as the parents of those kids. And I think that if they didn't have that aspect, I don't think the movie would be very frightening, but they make you care about them quite quickly. And I think that really sustains the horror later.
It's just funny to me, man, because people that watch the podcast know I've said 1,000 times, to me, this is not like universal. To
Hmm.
Ken Sledge, the best horror movie is a family drama that terrifies me. And Insidious, you're right. Like when they're even just playing in bed, and he's like, you could write a song about me, like he's the coolest guy.
No, 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 no,
No.
no,
And it's
no, no, no. Shh.
big muscles. You really feel like you're watching a real married couple and the dumb shit they do to kind of annoy slash love on each other. Like
Yeah.
those little moments like that, people look at as maybe filler time. To me, that's like teasing the fish. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
reeling us in to let us know, like, you're going to fall in love with this family. So if anything happens to any of them, you're going to be broken into pieces. And they did that perfectly with this whole cast. Um, continued into 2, like you said. And so I got to ask, because we usually talk about, would you like to see your first horror movie remade? Well, we can't really do that because it's so fresh. But what we can do is this year, we have a new chapter of Insidious coming out, Thread and Insidious Tale, starring Mandy Moore, where a couple loses their daughter and find a way in the further to go back and try to stop her death. Is that something you're looking forward to, or do you think they should have stopped it with? Do you think they should have ended it with 5? I can't really say that because you haven't seen 5, but
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that it's kind of the culmination though, because you have the original cast back. So I haven't seen that yet,
yeah,
but I didn't even know this movie was coming out, honestly. I think it's a rich enough world that if you have an exciting idea, and especially I think these franchises are great for really ambitious young filmmakers,
yeah,
where okay, there's an established IP, so they're going to get funding but then this filmmaker can, really flex their muscles, like Annabelle Creation or was that the one that was really good? I think
yeah.
what,
With
yeah, yeah,
Lulu Wilson and
yeah, yeah, and then like Ouija 2 or something where you get like an aspiring horror auteur and then you give them maybe one of these franchise films that ends up being a lot better than the one that came before it because they have this IP they can play with the money and bring out their ideas. So if it's a situation like that where there's someone who wants to bring really something really fresh and unique to it, I'm all for, doing another Insidious movie. If it's just trying to ride the coattails or something, I don't know. But if it's like a concept that, catches my interest, a story's a story no matter
well,
what
I
kind of
like how they're doing it as an expanded universe. They're not like this is
yeah,
Insidious 6, Thread and Insidious Tale. So they don't
yeah.
have to stay within the realm of what Insidious did. They can make their own story here.
Yeah.
So I love talking about Insidious with you, man. But here for a second, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Ben? What is your
Oh,
favorite horror movie of all time?
favorite horror movie is very different than first horror movie. A few come to mind. Well, I'll just say the first two that came to my mind because obviously that says something. John Carpenter's The Thing and Don't Look Now by Nicholas Roeg were the two films that immediately sprung to my mind, and there are many more, but those were the first two that popped into my head. Also, on topic to this one, I mean, the masterpiece, The Exorcist, I mean, that's the most obvious answer in the world, but I think, like if I had to put The Exorcist toe to toe with either of those movies, I would go with The Exorcist, but those two films feel like films that, if they're screening somewhere, I will like go out of my way to go to. I like body horror stuff, so like, The Fly and Videodrome and stuff in
Yeah.
in that kind of world, I'm very partial to. Like body horror
Shit.
effects. Yeah.
You're talking about body horror. The first thing you said was The Thing.
Yeah, no, that's the best
Like,
one ever to me. So that's why I had to bring it up. I love
dude,
Alien too. I mean, both of those films, I mean, they have similar structures. The Thing just has the effects that just completely,
right. Oh,
completely blow me away. Such an amazing concept.
the most underrated score of all time is John Carpenter's The Thing. It's
So good.
absolutely brilliant. So, man, again, I've had an amazing time hanging out with you, Ben. But before I let you go, because we are at the end of the third act, the
Yeah,
credits
yeah.
are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But we're going to bounce back to Insidious. And what we're going to do is rank this on a skull count. Now,
Ooh.
we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So, 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Ben, what would your ranking of Insidious be?
I mean, when I first saw it, it would be a five skull for me. I mean, this movie completely rocked my world when I first saw it. And now even watching it today, I would probably go around four, in terms
Yeah.
of how scared I was the other night. I was very scared. So it's very high on skulls for me.
See, and it's funny because you can have a movie that's not a quote unquote masterpiece. I do think Insidious is, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's not a, but it can still be that effective to you because of when you watched it and how it determined, you know, how horror went for you the rest of your life. So,
Mhm.
man, again, I do appreciate you coming on. And I do want to remind everybody all of those links are in the description. So make sure you're following and subscribing where available. Ben, please don't go anywhere. I do have a couple more questions for you.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good.
Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Those links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.